White people are born with a rugby ball, most of them. And they cultivate that until they get a lot of people being professional.
Right.
Black people, somewhere, somehow, we get lost in the system. And the engine room of sport is in schools. The engine room that gives birth to sports stars is in schools. Now, when you look at the advantage schools, private schools, they have what you call the engine room is alive. My job as a sports minister is to make sure that arts, culture, and sport get recognition in schools. Because a child in sport is a child out of court. I was looking at people traveling all the time and going overseas. You see the entourages that used to go overseas, that time is over. Now I went to Paris. People are shocked that I'm back. What are you doing here? The Olympics are on. I'm like, I've got work to do.
Yes.
I went there. I only managed to watch 2 events and I came back. It's not a great thing I did by coming back to work. It should become the norm that we should spend money on the athletes, on the sport, on culture. And people are complaining and we haven't even started yet. From COVID days, we are bringing out who got money. The problem and the truth that we must also tell here today, there was corruption in that department.
In the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture? At what level was that?
At all levels. Another person was paid 4.5 million to teach people how to tweet, how to use social media. Like, it's a movie. It's a movie. And then you talk about the budget. You know, it's very sad what's happening in South Africa. I think the saddest thing at times is how does government, government in its own gets blamed.
Right.
But it is the deployees. How do you send money back? Let's start there.
Back to the fiscus.
Yes, back to the fiscus.
Yeah.
Then when you don't use the money, national government get blamed. Treasury gets blamed. The government gets blamed for that this government is not performing. But the people like us that gets the money and can't spend the money, how do you? It's criminal to receive money. If you are, let's say, Minister of Health and you send money back and then people don't have ambulances. If I'm the Minister of Sport, I'm telling you, they don't know what they did by making Minister of Sport. There will be nothing to send back. There will be 2 cents left.
But what are you going to do with the money so
School
that there is nothing?
No, school sport.
You're plugging it into school sport. Is that your primary focus is school sport?
You have to, Robert, let me tell you. Netball and soccer, football. Is a non-white person. You're born with only those 2 things.
Let's change that narrative quickly.
Yes.
Can I correct you, Minister?
No, I want to say to you something.
No, but can I correct you?
Yes.
There's no non-white anything. You as a black person. Because when you start to say non-white, you are negating that is not.
I'm talking the language that most people understand. I'm trying to get you a point.
I hear you,
Let
Minister.
me finish my point. At the end of the day, you'll understand. You're speaking my language.
I hear
but
you.
I'm getting somewhere.
Okay, let's get to it.
White people are born with a rugby ball. Most of them. And they cultivate that until they get a lot of people being professional.
Right.
Black people, somewhere, somehow, we get lost in the system. And the engine room of sport is in schools. The engine room that gives birth to sports stars is in schools. Now, when you look at the advantage schools that's got all this money and where most of our children go to.
The private schools.
The private schools.
Yeah.
They have what you call the engine room is alive. My job as a sports minister is to make sure that arts, culture, and sport get recognition in schools. Because a child in sport is a child out of court. That's my saying for this term of mine. Right. So I'm saying to you that money is going to go to where it, usually I was looking at people traveling all the time and going overseas. You see the entourages that used to go overseas, that time is over. I went overseas. Now I went to Paris. People are shocked that I'm back. They're like, I'm fit. What are you doing here? The Olympics are on. I'm like, I've got work to do.
Yes.
I went there. I only managed to watch two games.
Two events.
Yeah, two events. I managed to watch the hockey. I managed to watch the three events. The sevens, I managed to watch the gymnast, Gayton.
Yes.
And I came back. I wanted to watch swimming. Everybody says the medals are going to start rolling in with swimming. But I understood that it doesn't make me better. It's not a great thing I did by coming back to work. It should become the norm that we should spend money on the athletes, on the sport, on culture. And people that says no sport gets all the attention, that's actually not true. If you look at the 6 billion we get, the majority of that money goes to arts and culture. And that was the biggest shock for me.
But then the arts and culture people are saying that they don't get the money. They don't even get a trickling of that money. So how do you balance that if it's supposed to go to arts and culture, but the artists are saying, hey, look at us?
I think you're hitting a nerve when you say that, and I'll tell you why. Because that's the message I got when I became the minister.
And that's a correct message.
And I went there. Yeah, I can tell you it's a semi-correct message.
Yeah?
It's a semi-correct message. I went there and I asked, what happened to the money? Why don't you give the artists money? They plead in poverty. They can't pay medical aid. They can't pay for their own funerals. They didn't make provision. They can't pay for funeral cover. And I was told this story and this story. I said, no, let's do this. Let's start showing, because you say you gave this one money, you gave that one money. I said, let's show the public. And that's what we are doing now. And people are complaining and we haven't even started yet. From COVID days, we are bringing out who got money. The problem and the truth that we must also tell here today, there was corruption in that department.
In the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. At what level was
At all levels.
From the minister?
I wouldn't say the minister because there's
That's
no
his
case.
department.
Pardon, I mean like in the admin.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say previous ministers didn't do something wrong or that I'm not going to say because I wasn't there. It must still be investigated. If anybody has any evidence that the previous ministers did wrong, they must come forward.
Can I push you, Mr. Very quickly? In you saying that, because that is such an important part, and you got a direct line now with the president. You're part of government of national unity. So you have to get a hold of the president and say, listen, I actually think as the incoming Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, there should be a commission of inquiry. Because South Africans would not be able to rest easy post a pandemic if there is no proper, very clear, very transparent commission of inquiry. I mean, would you support something like that?
At this stage, I would not. I'll tell you why I would not support it. Because, a commission of inquiry firstly, it costs money. Secondly, it's important.
Yeah.
But we should not chase the wind. These things are not as difficult. We are now we said we want to bring out the who got money. Immediately, there's people that said, my name is on the list, but I didn't get money. I called in audit yesterday. I called in 15 auditors in the department. I said to them, start with me if you think I got money and everyone.
Yeah.
I said to them, investigate, go attend to this thing where people said didn't get money so that I can get to the bottom of it. I have no idea how great the wrongdoing was yet. But if I find out that this is huge, this cannot just be solved by charging 10, 12, 15 people. It is then that I will approach the president and say, listen, this is way bigger. But here's the issue where I wanted to get at.
Sure.
There are people that says they didn't get money, artists that got money. Let's start there. There are people that they're no longer making music. Artists that we knew, they're no longer making music. The department is now the ATM. The officials were scared of them because they'll talk about you on Facebook, on Twitter. Now they have a minister, if you say something about me, I will say back because that's my playground. I'm not going to be threatened by what you're going to say.
So people who are non-musicians were getting funds from the department.
Yes.
Although they're not making any music or history of music.
His neighbor's dog, and his dog, and a fax machine will write the constitution. And they'll ask for money. And they'll get money. No website, no presence. Nobody knows them. We are going to get them robbed. Let me tell you, I can tell you about one incident where one person, I couldn't believe it, was paid $20 million to buy a building. Why will the department buy a building for one person? When I asked them, can you tell me, can I get I want to see the title deed. They said, no, we don't have it. This artist have the title deed. I said, for what? There's a big investigation ongoing now regarding that.
And the building for what?
The building is to develop artists. Another person was paid $4.5 million to teach people how to tweet, how to use social media. Like, it's a movie. It's a movie.
One individual was given 4.5 million.
4.5 million.
On how to tweet.
When you look at what is it, how to use social media.
But is it the same person who also got funding from the lotteries board?
No. I don't know what's happening at the lotteries board at the moment.
But you would have read. I can angle
No,
you.
it's not the same. These are different people. The list is long. Since I've been appointed, I can tell you people have been trying to stop me from publishing this list because, hey, we're going to be embarrassed. This one is going to be embarrassed. And I said to them, this is not a list to embarrass you.
Yeah.
This is a bragging list for us to show the world during the most vulnerable time, COVID, we were there for artists. During the time when artists were struggling, we were there for them. There's no shame in asking your government for help. Absolutely no shame. Poor people will stand in line where everybody sees them getting $350. Why will artists have a problem to get 20,000? Once you ask public money, you open yourself up for scrutiny. Public money is not mafia money. It's not a secret. I am saying that what I like about the GNU, no one has come to me and said, no, you can't bring out that list. No one. And if that has to happen, I will resign. Because I believe that there's so many wrongdoing that happened in the department where sports stars were robbed, where artists were robbed, people from the heritage. The money didn't always go to where it's supposed to go. There are people here. How can a person be 30 years in the industry as a singer and he still wants funding to develop him? Do you think Beyonce can go and stand in America and ask for money for her to be developed? We have artists here that we know for 30 years. They still get money. People say they beat poverty, but go to the Instagram. They beat poverty by us, but they're having 70,000 Louis Vuitton bags, Gucci bags, and that's the fact. And they don't want to hear that. I am saying that the money will be used to where it should go to. Venezuela invited me 2 weeks ago. And there was a long list of, when I took over, a long list of people working there that was to go with the artists, with the writers. I said, hell no, where are you going? Did you write a book? What are you doing there? I cut myself from that list. I cut the other artists from the other people from the department, and I made them go with a small contingent. And that's how things are going to be going forward.
Really interesting video, guys. Gayton Mckenzie actually seems to be like someone who actually really wants to work for South Africans. And, you know, many times in these ministries all across Africa, not just even in South Africa, my country, Nigeria, even in Kenya, I've seen many of the youths actually complaining about the corruption that goes on in these ministries. Gayton Mckenzie seems to be like, you know, one of those people who seems to be fearless because to really expose the corruption and rot that actually takes place in many ministries, many governments in Africa, you know, one really needs to be, you know, brave. That's the word. The word is brave. And I remember in one of the interviews Helen Zille had with King Studio, I think it's one of the videos that I actually made in this channel, that he actually asked to be shut down because it was actually, he didn't feel comfortable that I tried to make a commentary on his video or probably a kind of like a clip used from his video to really highlight some of the points I actually wanted to make. Helen Zille actually spoke about the fact that, you know, Ramaphosa is a good man. President Ramaphosa is a really good person, a really good politician, but she actually thinks that he's not brave. And I think that bravery is actually something that speaks about, you know, going head to head with corruption. Corruption has a really ugly face. It has a really scary face. It can eliminate a person who tries to go head on head with it and without wisdom and all. And so that's why I think Gayton Mckenzie being placed where he is today as sports minister in South Africa, I think it might be, a really excellent move by the GNU, because he actually seems to really understand the power of sports in trying to galvanize and really ratify the complexity that heralds such a really complex, racially sensitive society like South Africa. Because South Africa is actually a really sort of like what many have called a time bomb waiting to explode. You see, and ministers actually appointed to government in a country like South Africa need to be sensitive enough to understand how to engage in their use of their ministries to try to really maintain peace, or try to like really shorten, or shorten that divide, most of them, the racial divide, the cultural divide, the economic divide, how to use that, the ministries to try to do that. And I think this idea of Gayton Mckenzie to really work within the schools, I think it's a really fantastic idea. If I try to compare it in the nations I've actually had experience with, like if in West Africa, for example, Ghana, Nigeria, I really see the point he actually has in terms of the fact that, the schools are actually kind of like these, engine rooms from where sports is actually, sport comes alive. Although many countries also use sort of like this, like in Nigeria, for example, many soccer local leagues, they have these academies where they set up to try to train and raise and see what talents can evolve to be able to represent the nation. And so the academies, but in trying to go to schools, I think that's a really excellent idea, because we know we have a lot of schools that are actually already functioning, right, in South Africa. And so rather than trying to set up private academies to try to discover talent, which also will engage more finances and all that, why not work with the structures that are actually already running within the system, try to engage sports in them, from there harvest talents that could actually represent South Africa, and both from the whites and the blacks, because these talents are actually not necessarily they shouldn't actually be necessarily from one race, but they should actually stem from the multiple races. We have talents from probably the Indians, the colors, the whites, the blacks. There are many talents that could represent South Africa. But in terms of trying to use these private academies or private, bodies as avenues to try to generate or harvest the talent that existed in South Africa, we might end up trying to increase that racism or racist divide or racial divide in that regard. But in trying to work with the schools where both the whites, blacks, colors, and all that already attend, it might a little bit anyway kind of like shorten that racial divide that actually already exists. Although the example he gives in this video is the fact that the international schools, or what is called private schools, I'm sure most of these private schools are kind of like where at least from the middle class in South Africa are able to afford. And so the other schools, which many would call maybe government schools, I don't know how it's called in South Africa, but in Nigeria, we usually call them government schools that are not they're not really funded, from the government quarters. They are actually reportedly funded, but the funds do not get down to the schools, and these schools are dilapidated. These schools are actually in a really poor state. So if this kind of sports, for example, this kind of sports systems that Gayton Mckenzie is trying to engage in could actually be introduced in these schools, and maybe all the schools in South Africa, maybe we might be able to see much more harvesting of talents if the budget for the sports ministry, as Gayton Mckenzie speaks about, can be used efficiently, knowing fully well that he himself actually has argued that he'll be donating all of his salaries for the next 5 years, which he actually aggregated. I think a minister in South Africa earns at least at about approximately 200,000 rands before deductions. And so he argues that he's going to be donating all that to a foundation for, I think, the Jocelyn Smith Foundation. This is actually his argument. And so he's not going to be. So if the budget that comes to the sports ministry can be used effectively, he argues also in this video that he wouldn't be returning money. All the budget that will be released for the sports ministry will be used to the teeth. And if all of that is going to be used to invigorate sports within schools, to try to harvest all the talents available in South Africa, to represent South Africa in almost all the if possible, as much as possible, the Olympic sports or other events which we have globally, to try to increase the level of patriotism for South Africa, and not just patriotism, but to also reduce the sensitivity of the society, the cultural sensitivity, racial sensitivity that's inherent in South Africa. I think that would be a really smart move and a really smart strategic move by the sports minister in that regard. So I really enjoyed this interview. Really smart, really lovely points. For me, I really had to engage with them to think about how the practicalities of what it means to be a minister actually entails, and how Gayton Mckenzie plans to put this behind amidst the backlog of corruption, and probably even the corruption he might actually have to fight frontally ahead as he proceeds for the next 5 years. But anyway, what do you guys think? I think this was a really fantastic interview. What do you guys think about this? Share your thoughts in the comments.